Hi friends, following the Hindenburg research report of 2024 that made allegations against former SEBI chairperson, the SEBI has now made a big move by accepting the new recommendations regarding its board members. So let's get on with it. In 2024 Hindenburg research, they have made conflict of interest allegation against then SEBI chairperson Ms. Madhabi Puri Buch. It said Ms. Buch and her husband held stakes in obscure offshore funds that were the same or similar to those used by Mr. Vinod Adani, a brother of Mr. Gautam Adani. These offshore investments created a conflict of interest because SEBI was investigating Adani-linked entities and offshore shareholders at that time, and Hindenburg suggested this might explain SEBI's alleged reluctance to take strong action. There were also questions about an offshore consulting firm owned by Ms. Buch, which allegedly received payments from some listed companies while she was at SEBI. In 2025, the Lokpal, that is India's independent anti-corruption body, dismissed multiple corruption complaints against her based on the Hindenburg report, holding that the allegations rested on assumptions and lacked verifiable evidence. But this incident raised questions about the independent functioning of India's security market regulator SEBI. So, when the next SEBI chairperson, Mr. Tuhin Kanta Pandey, took charge, he constituted a high-level committee to assess the framework on conflict of interest as well as the disclosure of interest. What did the committee found out? SEBI had two different set of rules, one for board members and another for employees. For board members, they were governed under Code on Conflict of Interest for Members of Board 2008, which was voluntary and guidance based. Employees, on the other hand, were governed under SEBI Employees Service Regulation 2001, which was legally enforceable. Employees had heavy, strict rules such as strict trading limits, insider trading restriction, and disclosure requirement. Board members had much lighter or weaker rules, such as they were not even treated as insiders under SEBI's insider trading framework. So they could trade in stocks almost freely with almost no restriction. The committee also noted chairpersons, senior staff, and board members have far more influence on decisions, policy, investigation approval, etc. So logically speaking, those same board members should face much stricter disclosure rules because their decisions can directly affect market and listed companies. The committee also noted the definitions of family and conflict of interest differed between members and employees. So the same situation could be treated differently depending on whether you are a staff member or a board member. Additionally, disclosures of interest were weak or unclear, and there was no clear systematic process for members to recuse themselves when they had a potential conflict. SEBI board on March 23 has accepted 7 of those recommendations made by the committee, which includes some of them includes whole-time members and chairpersons will now be treated as insiders just like employees, so they cannot trade freely. Their trading is subject to insider trading restriction. The limits and restrictions on what and how they can invest, example stock, mutual fund, offshore funds, will be brought in line with those for regular employees. The term family for conflict of interest and disclosure purposes is being widened, so more relatives' interests are captured and disclosed. For existing investments, the board members have been given the option to liquidate, freeze, or sell them with approval. The SEBI board, however, modified at least 6 of them before approval. The justification for this modification were given as public and media commentary because of sensitivity of the issue, privacy concerns of employees collecting too much personal data, and other practical or legal concerns. The modified recommendations include the committee original wanted full public disclosure of assets, liabilities, and investments for the board members. But the board decided to make immovable property details public, but it kept detailed asset and liability disclosures internal, likely to be handled by a proposed Office of Ethics and Compliance that checks conflicts but does not publish everything. Even though the term family has been expanded, investment restriction on the so-called family in relation to unlisted securities have been excluded. Such selective acceptance and reluctance on publicly disclosing their conflict of interest does not remove the question mark raised in the first place. Even still, these recommendations are a step in the right direction, but the code still needs enabling regulations from the government to become fully enforceable, because even after the recommendation, it is still not enforceable. In summary, as an important institution of India, SEBI must ensure that its independence is not compromised, because then only the market participants will feel that trust factor. Thank you.